Hey guys, Tony here from Tony TechBytes, and this is the OnePlus 7 Pro. I've been using it for about 2 months now, and finally here is my review of it. Before we start this video, I just wanted to tell you all that I am a US brand ambassador for OnePlus. So they did send out this phone to me to check out, but they did not tell me to say anything about this phone. They didn't pay me, and of course I didn't even have to make this review video since it's on my personal channel and I wanted to do it myself. So I'm not going to dive deep into the specs of this phone since you can do that on your own on their website, and I'm pretty sure you've seen many reviews about this phone. So I just want to talk about my experience with the phone after 2 months of daily usage and how it keeps up with smartphones of today. So the first thing you see about this phone is the design, and of course this is the Nebula blue color, which I think looks really cool. I actually really wanted the Nebula blue color, and of course I didn't have the option to choose the color, and I'm glad they gave me this color. Which is really appreciated. And the back of the phone is also really clean. You just have the OnePlus logo, OnePlus, on the bottom side of the back. And of course the back is made of Corning Gorilla Glass, which feels really smooth in the hand. And it's not like a slippery or fingerprint glass. It's smooth, but it doesn't feel like it's gonna fall out of your hand. Of course, you have the triple camera setup on the top of the camera, as well as the flash, which is pretty standard, and I'll talk more about that later. On the front of the phone, you can see the 6.67-inch Quad HD AMOLED display, which looks really beautiful. Compared to iPhones and many other smartphones out there today, this looks so much better because it's nearly bezel-less and the resolution is really sharp as well. On top of that, you have the 90Hz refresh rate, which is significantly smoother than 60Hz. And initially, I didn't think there would be a huge difference. I mean, that's like a 30 Hz difference. And when I game on my PC, I usually use a 144 Hz panel, which is significantly smoother than 60 Hz. So I didn't think 90 Hz would be much of a difference. But when you actually compare it side to side with a 60 Hz phone, you actually see a difference when you're scrolling through social media and also web browsing when you're scrolling up and down through a web page, which looks so much smoother than 60 Hz. Of course, other smartphones like the Asus ROG phone with 120 Hz will look a little bit smoother, but 90 Hz is still a really good middle ground, and it'll especially help with battery life since it won't drain it as quickly as something like 120 Hz. Speaking of battery life, I've been getting really good battery life with this phone even after 2 months of usage. I usually get about 6 to 7 hours of screen on time, which is pretty good for a phone of this size with this sharp of a screen and that high of a high refresh rate. So I use this phone for gaming, watching YouTube videos, and also scrolling through social media, which is also kind of taxing on the phone's battery because you're looking through high resolution photos and videos all the time on this smartphone. And so far I haven't noticed huge degradation of the battery. It's pretty much the same as day one. You'll probably get slightly worse battery, and that's to be expected because of the natural wear down of lithium ion batteries. That's just the nature of them. But overall, the battery life has still been pretty good. In terms of charging, you have the Warp Charge 30 charger, which comes included in the box, and that's really appreciated because it charges the phone incredibly quickly. I mean, you see the iPhone with the 5-watt charger, that tiny dinky brick, and you see this humongous OnePlus power adapter, which is so much better. And the cable is also a lot thicker than the iPhone one, which is way better. And I really appreciate that from OnePlus. This charges much quicker than other smartphones. You could usually completely charge it within an hour, and OnePlus advertises that you can actually go out through the day with just 20 minutes of charging, which I have to say is pretty accurate because I get up to around 80% with 20 minutes of charging. And so this means that you won't have to keep your phone tethered to a charger at all times, since it does retain the battery life much better than other smartphones, and it also charges really quick. I also forgot to mention the battery is 4,000 milliamp hours, which is pretty impressive compared to other smartphones, but it isn't the absolute biggest out there. And honestly, I don't really want the biggest battery out there since I don't want it to be turned into a Samsung. So let's talk about performance. This smartphone hasn't really slowed down over the past 2 months of usage. This model is the 12 gigabytes RAM model, and I didn't really have a say in the configuration. They just gave me this one. It's really good. It's kept up really well. Switching between apps is really quick and snappy, and also opening them is really quick. And I really like the optimization of OxygenOS. I'm using 9.5.10, which is the latest version as of today, and the animations are really quick. It's definitely a lot faster than the iPhone XS because the animations are quicker and it overall feels snappier. 90 Hz is also a little bit smoother than 60 Hz, which looks a lot better. And overall, the experience between 12 gigabytes of RAM, the smoother refresh rate, and the higher resolution screen make this phone such a joy to use. When you look on the OnePlus 7 Pro, it has a much larger screen. it's sharper and the refresh rate is higher, so scrolling through photos is much more enjoyable on this phone. Gaming is also really smooth on this phone. I made a separate video right over here which you can check out. So the processor is the Snapdragon 855 with 8 cores and turbos up to 2.4 or something gigahertz, I think. And the Adreno 640 is the GPU, which is pretty solid for most Android smartphones. These specs are kind of middle of the line, I mean besides the RAM of course. It does keep the phone snappy and performs really well. It also has a liquid cooling chamber inside the smartphone, which is like a tiny copper heat pipe to dissipate the heat. And it does do a pretty good job since this phone never really gets that hot. So one thing I really like about OxygenOS is that it's really smooth, there's no bloatware, and they have really consistent updates like iOS. I really appreciate that OnePlus optimizes their smartphones and releases updates really quickly. And so if there's a bug with the front-facing camera, like if it's in your pocket and it comes out and it activates when someone's calling you or something, they're gonna optimize it and make sure to fix those bugs, which is really appreciated. So far they've released multiple updates over the past couple months, which I really like. They've improved the camera quality, nightscape mode, and a bunch of other things like that. In terms of camera quality, I have noticed that the 48 megapixel main camera is really solid. The dynamic range is really good, saturation is also good, pictures are also pretty contrasty, and the details retained in the shadows are also pretty good. Compared to the iPhone XS, in some cases you can see the details better in the shadows and the highlights with the OnePlus 7 Pro. So the HDR mode does do a pretty good job. There's also the ultra wide angle lens and the telephoto lens, and so far those have been pretty good options as well. They're definitely more convenient to have an ultra wide, a standard kind of wide zoom, and also a telephoto lens, since you can use those different options if you can't move your feet. I'll just show a couple quick photos I took with this phone, and honestly the photos look really sharp and crisp. One common complaint of the OnePlus 7 Pro is the large size. I mean, it's definitely larger than many other smartphones like the iPhone XS Max or the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. And it definitely is a little bit big in my pocket. It's pretty heavy as well, but really it isn't that bad. I really appreciate the thin form factor, so it does slide into my pockets really smoothly. And if you add on a case, it might be a little bit thicker. Right now I'm using the stock OnePlus case, just the plastic one that comes inside. I haven't really found a need to get a different case. Maybe I'll get the carbon fiber case in the future, since I tried that on the OnePlus 5T and it felt really smooth. As for the screen protector that I'm using, it's the Whitestone Dome Glass screen protector. I also made a video on this right up there. It doesn't degrade the image quality, which is to be expected since it's basically just a sheet of glass. And the fingerprint sensor is also still pretty fast. I haven't noticed any speed degradation since pretty much just a thin layer of glass with adhesive in between. The combination between the large and sharp display, smooth refresh rate, great features, and a moderate price tag make this phone such an appealing option for consumers out there. It isn't full of gimmicks, and its specs are genuinely noticeable, like the 90Hz refresh rate and Dolby Atmos speakers. I enjoy using this phone for gaming and media consumption over any other option out there, especially considering my iPhone XS has a slower refresh rate screen, lower resolution, it's also smaller as well, and the speakers aren't that great. 90Hz doesn't seem like much of a difference from 60, but it really does make a difference and makes everything look much smoother. So thank you so much for watching this review of the OnePlus 7 Pro. I've really enjoyed using this phone over the past 2 months, and I hope this didn't seem like a big advertisement for them. I genuinely really enjoy using this. I mean, you get so many good features for the price tag, and it's not overpriced like many other flagships out there. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps support my channel and make more videos like this. It also motivates me to keep consistently uploading.